All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Big Facts. I'm your host, Aaron Barrison, along with Justin Everett. Justin, I don't know if you've been going through Facebook today, but there's a lot of people that don't have the money to be investing in crypto that have invested in crypto, and they're watching the market go like this today, and they're all cashing out below what they bought in for. Your guy here is just buying more. It's a good day
Well,
for
you
me.
you buy the dip. I mean, if you are a part of the crypto mafia with the goal of resetting the world economy and having cryptocurrency become the new monetary value that we all abide by, you got to buy the dips. I mean, this
I
was the
want
GameStop problem when everybody bought GameStop, and 3 weeks later they sold out, and everybody wonders why GameStop didn't break Wall Street. It's because you got cold feet and you ran away. That's what happened.
to remind people because I did this a couple years ago. Bitcoin was about $2,000 or $3,000, shot up to 17, 18, 19, touch 20, I think. More people bought in at 20, thinking it was going to go up. Crashes back down to like 7 or 8 for a while, and people sold all their shit. It takes a couple months, so people gotta chill. But good for me. I'm buying a lot of shit, so we'll see what happens if I go completely broke or if I have a lot of money in a couple years. So playing games tonight. This is the one we've been waiting for. There were two last night. Indiana absolutely smoked the Hornets, and the Hornets were kind of reeling at the end of the season. Not a surprise. Surprised that they won by 30. They scored 144 points to, I think Charlotte had like 117 or 107. The second game, I think we were both rooting. I really wanted to see the Wizards kind of take the Celtics out of the playoffs just because the Celtics ended up kind of beating the crap out of them by the end of the game. Jason Tatum had a pretty good first half, a really good second half, and they look like they're going to be in the playoffs. So we have a game tonight.
They play Brooklyn.
Is that the way it pans out? So
The Celtics play Brooklyn.
the Celtics have to play Indiana though, right? Before.
I assume there's one more playing game left.
Yeah, I think it's Indiana. I have to look at this. We should have gotten this down. Hold on.
You keep talking. I'll fact check you.
Okay. Well, we have a game tonight. This is the game that everybody's been waiting for. First of all, I think the play-in is ridiculous because you're planning all year. Like let's take the Lakers for instance. You're resting guys. Thought process that it's okay to rest these guys because we're going to be in the playoffs as regardless of whether we're the 5, 6 seed, 6 seed, 7 seed, regardless of whether there's injuries, you're still in the playoffs 1 through 8. Now you have teams that didn't finish 1 through 8 that have an opportunity to make the playoffs. Do you like the play-in, Just?
I don't mind the play-in. It's a different thing that I'm kind of anxious to see. So here's just real fast before I respond to liking the play-in. 2 versus 7 is set. That's the Brooklyn Nets versus the Boston Celtics. Game 1, Saturday, May 22nd. The Milwaukee Bucks 3 seed at the Miami Heat 6 seed. That starts Saturday, May 22nd. The Knicks versus the Atlanta Hawks starts Sunday, May 23rd. And the last playing game is Indiana and Washington for the 8th seed in the East. I believe whoever wins that game captures the 8th seed, so it's going to either be Indiana or Washington. That will be Sunday, May 23rd. The Sixers will start their first series.
So they're
So the playing game, and then we'll talk about those two teams because I do want to see Washington. I think Washington is going to be easy enough. I'd prefer Indiana because I think they blow the doors off Indiana. I think Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal have really kind of gotten that team feeling like they're playing for something. Not that I think they're a threat to the Sixers, but it's just harder than it might need to be. But the play-in tournament, I like the idea of it. I think that it creates a little bit more competitiveness in the middle of each conference. But the problem I really have with it is the 8th seed can't win a title. So why the fuck do I care about the 10th seed jumping the 8th seed? It doesn't matter to me a little bit. So, I mean, that's kind of where – now, again, where it'll get interesting, though, this is a place where I think it would get interesting. If the Golden State Warriors had Klay Thompson and Steph Curry down most of the year, and come the last 6 weeks of the season, they played themselves into the 9th seed or the 10th seed, and they were given a chance to play in, they were a part of that play-in, and captured the 7th or the 8th seed, a team like that had a catastrophic injury and a guy coming back, that would be an interesting storyline. I imagine that's why they have it there. That's what their hope is to end with at some point. But I don't hate it. I mean, it's like the runner on second in extra innings in baseball. It's one of these COVID era things that they're going to try out for a couple of years. And until it really pisses people off and they stop watching, they're still just going to have these weird little things in the rules now.
Speaking of baseball, let's pivot real quick because we had a little incident with the White Sox being up. Who were they playing? White Sox.
I don't remember.
I think it might have been the Cardinals or something like that. They were up 13-4. There was a 3-0 count, and batter swings, hits a home run on the pitch, and La Russa, who's the manager of the Chicago White Sox, says that he's got to respect the game and he's going to be disciplined for it. I have such a big issue with that. Just playing baseball and understanding also the way that the contracts are set up. So let's say we're towards the end of the season, Joss, okay? I have something in my contract that says if I hit my 40th home run, I get $1 million bonus. You think I'm going up to the plate and not swinging at that 3-0 pitch right over the middle of the plate and trying to get that $1 million? These players are incentivized based on their statistics and how they played, and this guy's supposed to just take it because the other team is throwing the game. Does that make any sense to you?
No, this is competition, bro. Like, you don't lay down for anybody. I don't give a fuck what the situation is. My fucking 10-year-old daughter, if she plays soccer next year, is going to be taught the same. You play until the other team quits. Like,
right.
that's competitive sports. You don't fucking not take an advantage because the other team's losing by 8 runs. It's so stupid, bro. It's just soft, bro. Softer than Charmin is the only description you can have for whatever the fuck we're calling our society nowadays. Gen Y, Gen Z, Gen who gives a fuck. So soft. I grew up watching Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa juice to the fucking max with corked bats hitting 70 fucking home runs a year. I watched Barry Bonds become an MVP and then decide to cheat. That's what I saw growing up. Competitiveness. Barry Bonds was already a top 5 player in the league before the first shot in the ass. That was the competitiveness I grew up with. And I just don't understand this fucking nonsense, bro. If a pitcher is allowed to throw at a guy because they're pissed off about something, a batter's allowed to watch his home run and swing at every pitch he can hit.
The same thing they have in basketball sometimes when at the very end of the game, a team's getting blown out. They don't want to turn over to go on the stat sheet, and they drive to the basket and score, and the other team gets all pissed off because they're up 20 points. It's like, well, play defense because you haven't played it all game. Your job.
You wouldn't be down 20 if you played fucking defense.
You're on the court, right? Like, you do your job while you're at your job, right? So let's pivot back to basketball. The Lakers are playing the Warriors tonight at 10 o'clock. The betting money is going on the Warriors. They were a hotter team towards the end of the season. The Lakers have been injured. They haven't played that many games together. There's a play-in tournament. I am completely on the other side of this because I'm having a real issue trying to justify that Steph Curry is going to take Andrew Wiggins out there and beat LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Dennis Schroeder, all those guys. Do you think – we talked about this last year through the entire playoffs. Like, well, nobody's beating the Lakers. A little bit different this year because they've been dealing with some injuries. They haven't played a lot of games together. How do you feel about this playoff game, and do you give the Warriors any real shot to win this game?
No. No, for the reasons you gave, and it doesn't more. Unless LeBron James and Anthony Davis's injuries are not gone, unless they are playing at 30 or 40%, nobody in the West is going to beat the Lakers in the playoffs. They're just not going to do it. What we're failing to remember here is LeBron James is undefeated in the first round. He's never lost a first round series in his career.
Right.
It's not going to start this year. And my biggest beef with this is, if you think that there's a team that will go in underprepared, it's not the Lakers. They're not going to show up underprepared. It's not going to happen. Anthony Davis is now getting shit for ring chasing LeBron. Anthony Davis was a top 5 player up until 6 months ago when he got hurt for everybody in the world. Anthony Davis didn't ring chase. Anthony Davis kind of saved LeBron's skin at 35 years old. That's what Anthony Davis did last year. But they got shit to prove, bro. Like, they are if LeBron retires in 3 years and he spends 4 years as a Laker, 5 years as a Laker, and they have one title, that's a massive failure Massive failure.
Given the fact that they didn't make the playoffs the first year because he was hurt, Anthony Davis comes over. They weren't getting their due also. So the bubble's weird, right? The bubble that we had last year, because some teams get their due. Miami Heat, they go on this run that they weren't supposed to go on, and everybody's like, wow, they're a really good basketball team. They got healthy at the end of this year, started playing some good basketball. But then the Lakers, everybody kind of puts down what they did because they were in the bubble. So you're putting
it was like every series. It was Portland's going to beat LeBron, and it's Damian Lillard's first shot, and then Denver is going to capture Magic and beat LeBron. It's always who's going to stop LeBron James, and not these teams in the East that are false prophets, bro. I know Miami did great in the bubble last year, but look at what that team is mostly the same. I know Oladipo came over and then got hurt, and you're missing him. But Duncan Robinson is still on that team. Tyler Hero's still on that team. Goran Dragic is still on that team. You still have the core foundation of what you caught lightning in a bottle with last year. And you're a great coach. You're just not that good of a team.
I'd argue, as far as talent goes, the Sixers and the Heat have, in my opinion, the two best rosters. But for whatever reason, Miami, they're just as tough. They've been dealing with injuries. They're going to be a tough out in the playoffs. But do
you put Miami over Boston in talent? Like, we're just talking about talent on the roster?
Yeah, so we're talking about, Jaylen Brown's injured, first of all, right? So you got Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Marcus Smart. Those are your three main guys. Kemba Walker. I still like the Brooklyn's big three plus Joe Harris. I still like Bam, Jimmy, the three-point shooters they have, and Dragic for Miami. I think as far as talent goes, I would take those teams and the Sixers over a team like Milwaukee, for instance.
Well, Milwaukee is built opposite. Milwaukee's trying to play 15-year-old basketball, and they're doing it because Giannis is limited by what he can do. That's really what the problem is. I get Drew Holiday's a great player, but a defensive guard is not ever worth 3 first-round draft picks, period. Period isn't worth it. You're trying to fit a bunch of square pegs into round holes, and it doesn't work there. I'm 100% on board with that. But Boston's roster is deep. They deal with injuries. That's a problem. But their roster is impressive. I think the only roster in the East better than Boston is the Sixers. Now, again, I didn't get to see Victor Oladipo with Jimmy Butler. I don't think we're going to, by the way. Just a side note there. Victor Oladipo moves on. I think the Knicks is a place to look for Victor Oladipo to go to. There's a lot of teams that are going to compete for his service if whatever's going on with him isn't a concern in a couple of months when the offseason comes.
Back-to-back years for him with injury, though, right?
Yeah, it's not the same. I know that. The last year was an ACL. He tore an ACL or one major ligament in one of his legs. Yeah. But for me to be able to say, I mean, Miami is Jimmy Butler, who is their superstar, and Jimmy Butler is. Well, Jimmy Butler, give me a minute before we start calling Bam Adebayo a fucking superstar.
No, I don't think he's a superstar.
Jimmy Butler's your superstar, and he's the bottom of the barrel of superstars. We saw that when he was here. Jimmy Butler is a great player, but that's what he is. He's not a Joel Embiid. He's not a Steph Curry. He's not a LeBron. That's not who Jimmy Butler is. Jimmy Butler is just a really good basketball player, but that's your superstar. Yeah. I mean, Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero showed you a lot last season. This season, not so much. I mean, they left a lot wanting, to me at least.
Yeah.
And I look at all of these teams in the East. When you see teams like the Hornets, to me, the Hornets team, if they add Lonzo Ball and nothing else this offseason, that team's talent is better than Miami. Miami's coach is their X factor, though, bro. Spo takes guys like Duncan Robinson and Goran Dragic and Tyler Hero and makes a lot out of them. So that's why they're a threat in the playoffs to a lot of good teams. But with that being said, there is no team in the Eastern Conference that should be able to beat the 76ers in a 7-game series. There just isn't one. There should be a walk to the finals.
Now, Ben's had a pretty bad 20-game stretch. I was reading to end the season about 22 games, averaged 11, 6, and 5, which were below all of his averages, shot 55% from the line. Has it outside of one game that I was watching in the past 10 to 15 games, I saw him go to the hole real hard one game, the first half, and then completely fall back in the second half. his job is going to be, for the most part, to play defense. But if guys like Seth Curry, Danny Green aren't making the shots that you expect them to make, and you need Ben to be aggressive, that is my biggest concern with the Sixers, and it's probably my only concern with the Sixers. I think they can run through the East. I love the matchup with Milwaukee. I still like the matchup with Miami, even though they out-toughed us one game at the end of the season.
What you're saying is you need Ben to play a point forward. He needs to be a point forward. He has to be able to control the post. He has to take some pressure away from Joe, and he has to be a primary distributor, but he does have to take advantage when he's given one. Yeah. Like, that's all I need to see out of Ben, is I need to see him see the advantage that I see when I watch him play, and just abuse somebody sometimes. If you come down the floor and the guy that picks you up is a 6'3" point guard, blow him over. You're that big and that strong. Again, Aaron, all season, all I think about when Ben Simmons is run on a fast break is Sam Cassell. Ben, you're 6'11". It's all I can think about. So I'm with you. I agree. I think here's something that gives me hope, and I don't think you're going to agree with me an ounce on this, and that's okay. That was an audition for playoff minutes for Tyrese Maxey to end the season. That's what that game was.
Yeah.
That game was an audition that said, we've done this one time all season where this was your offense to run. Go show us what you've got and let's see. He puts up 30 points again efficiently. And I'm telling you, if you run into Danny Green can't hit the fucking broadside of a barn, or Seth Curry has a tweaky weird injury like he does, Tyrese Maxey is an intriguing guy to me. He's so much energy. His floater's elite, and he can hit shots. I think that's an X factor that Doc believes he's got an ace in his pocket that nobody knows what to expect out of.
Well, here's the other thing. We thought over the past season and a half, toward maybe the second half of this season, that Shake was going to be the real sixth man, the scoring threat off the bench. And he just showed a lot of inconsistency throughout the year. There were games where he was very efficient, and there were games where he was very inefficient. So if I think Maxey's going to take anyone's minutes, I'm not 100% sure it's going to be guys out of the starting lineup for a spark unless Ben is struggling and you need some points. I think it could be the second unit playing along guys, maybe with Shake on the bench or something along those lines. Maybe going out there when Matisse is out there because you know you're limited offensively. Maybe if you have to put Ben and Matisse on the floor at the same time because you're playing someone like the Brooklyn Nets and you need someone on Kyrie and you need someone on Kevin Durant or James Harden, those two guys are going to be on the floor and you're going to need a Maxey and Embiid, a Danny Green on the floor at the same time with them. I like the Sixers matchups defensively with every team. I'm curious to see if Brooklyn can stay healthy throughout the playoffs. I think the matchup with Milwaukee is easier than a lot of people are making it out to be. I do agree with you that it would be annoying to play the Wizards more than it would be Indiana. It's just annoying.
Yeah, not because I think that it's going to change the series, but that could be a team that steals 2 games, especially in Washington. Not because you blew it or because they were better than you, because they're right now, bro, they are playing like a team on a mission. Russell Westbrook just set a record for career triple-doubles. Russell Westbrook just for all those, and we keep pushing the conversation off, so I'm just going to spend a second. Russell Westbrook, when it's all said and done, will more than likely be the greatest player to never hoist a championship. He is so indescribably invaluable that you can't put, and this is the problem I have. I can't remember if it was Coward or it might have even been on WIP or the Fanatic local radio.
He doesn't like him.
I heard somebody say he's not a winner. And my problem with that is while I don't necessarily disagree, he's had a lot of opportunity. I can't explain that away. If Kevin Durant comes back to the Oklahoma City Thunder instead of jumping ship, the whole landscape of the league is entirely different. The entire landscape of reality is different. The Oklahoma City Thunder will then represent the West the next season. LeBron James probably finds a way to drag that team to wreck the Thunder because the Thunder weren't going to be a fucking 73-9 team. They weren't that good. It changes a lot of things, and Russell Westbrook wouldn't be called a loser. Like, we have to understand that his team traded away or let walk all of everything. They traded away James Harden and brought back in nothing. They let Kevin Durant walk away. They let Serge Ibaka walk away. They let all of these and what do all these players have in common? They've all gone on and won titles. Sans Harden, but he's been very successful in his career. They've all gone on to find good success. And Russell Westbrook still does what Russell Westbrook does. Russell Westbrook's given teams of fucking no one. When Bradley Beal's hurt, name 2 players that play for the Wizards. Don't worry, I'll wait. There's not a lot of them. But Russell Westbrook still averages a triple-double. And, like, I know that if he wins his team in, the 8th seed does not win the MVP. Just like Steph Curry is not going to win the MVP. But those 2 guys, what Russell Westbrook did this year and what Steph Curry did this year, are fucking unbelievable.
So remember at the beginning of the year when we were discussing the Warriors and how LeBron's dragged guys to the finals, and the reality is, in my opinion, LeBron has dragged guys worse. He's dragged worse rosters than what Steph has had to the finals. If you gave LeBron earlier in his career, Andrew Wiggins, Draymond Green, James Wiseman for half a season, Kelly Oubre, he probably would have won an extra finals, to be honest with you, because he's just that great.
And he would have had a 45 to 52 win season.
Yeah, for sure. So we can talk about Steph as being an MVP. He had a great last month. He had 10 games, I think 10 games this year where he made 10 or more threes, or it might have been even more than that. It was something ridiculous.
He had that fucking ridiculous scoring run where he was averaging like 45 points a game or some shit.
Yeah. So he went on realistically a James Harden type scoring run for what we saw a couple years ago, where you just would watch SportsCenter the next day to just kind of see how many points Steph had, and nobody could stop him. And I was giving him shit because they were losing a lot of games at the beginning of the season. I was like, oh, Steph's not that valuable. Then I started watching a couple Warriors games. And this dude, like, they're leaving. The defense is leaving.
Bro, they're quadruple teaming Steph Curry walking over the half court line.
Half court, and there's 3 guys on him, and 2 guys. We're going to leave those guys at the 3-point line and make them. They're leaving Andrew Wiggins and Kelly Oubre. They had to start subbing out Kelly Oubre and taking his minutes because he couldn't hit any threes.
Yeah,
and he's a good basketball player. He's just not a great 3-point shooter.
Right.
So, I want to give him his props, but I don't want to overdo it because I've seen LeBron drag worse rosters and not win MVPs. So I can't sit here and say that Steph should win an MVP, but I do think it's ridiculous getting triple team, putting up and winning the scoring title.
I want to ask you a quick question about the Sixers before we move off this and we start talking about the Eagles signing and all the other football shit we have to talk about. I'm going to write down a couple of names and I'm going to ask you a question about them. Hold on, give me a second. So let's go Furky. Let's go Danny Green. And let's go Dwight. All right, here's a question for you, okay? So Furkan Korkmaz, Danny Green, and Dwight Howard. The question is, who overachieves to a level where he makes a direct difference to this run? With what you've seen this year, what guy is going to, not one could, what guy do you believe of those 3 is going to be the guy that reaches so far past his current potential, he makes a literal difference that we can watch during this run?
I'm going to rule out Dwight Howard because at this point I think it would be unfair to watch a couple dominant Dwight Howard minutes and say that he is overachieving because we've seen him do this now for 2 straight years. So I'm going to throw him out. I know what Danny Green is in the playoffs. I've seen the runs with the Lakers. I've seen the runs with Toronto. He's hot. He's cold. He's hot. He's cold. Furkan is a little bit of an X factor because we've seen him hit game-winning shots this year. We've seen him be in games in the fourth quarter when
he has got the best contested 3-point shot on this team. He just does.
Right? And the quickest for
and he's 6'8", I think. He's a big body. But he has and not even kind of close, by far the best contested 3-point shot. If you need a guy in the last 2 minutes of a game to come out and hit a hard, Marco Bellinelli from a couple years ago, Sixers fans, we remember some of the fucking circus shit that he accomplished. That is what Furkan's capable of. I agree with you 100%. If Furkan gives me 12.5 by the end of the playoffs, you win the title. If you get 12.5 points out of Furkan Korkmaz over the course of 4 series, you won the championship. There's no way you didn't.
So there's going to be, in my opinion, this year, we're all focusing on Ben Simmons being aggressive. I believe that in the playoffs this year, the most talked about player on the 76ers is not going to be Joel Embiid because we know what to expect. We are going to start talking a lot about Tobias Harris over the next couple
I don't disagree.
because I've watched him this year, and it's a different animal, a different game, a different level of aggression, and a little bit of shit talking to his opponents. And
Yo, I'm gonna say something to you that's gonna fucking floor you. You ready? Off that point, off that setup, that exquisite setup for what I thought just the other day watching tape from this year. Tobias Harris looks so much like Carmelo Anthony right now.
yeah,
He plays on a team with Joel Embiid, who takes a lot of the limelight. Ben Simmons takes a lot of the limelight. If you watch Tobias Harris's game right now, I'm going to tell you what you're going to see. If you haven't watched games in the last couple of weeks, this is Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris ISOs, jab steps. If he's open, he fires, and he hits it about 45 to 50% of the time. If the jab step doesn't work, he starts running his fucking mouth, he bullies his ass backwards, and he just takes a 17-foot fadeaway that he hits at about 55%. He's Carmelo Anthony.
I agree, and I think the only two differences is like Melo is the better offensive player, but if Melo's the A+, Tobias Harris
He's the A-.
minus. He's not an A, he's the A-, and his game is very similar to Carmelo Anthony's game.
And he's got the size, he's got the shot, and I got to tell you, bro, I don't know what it is. I really got worried for him because of Boban, because Boban was his fucking boy. I was worried that we were going to lose Tobias's fire. What the fuck ever happened? I don't know if it was Matisse, because I know those two guys got close. Whatever happened this season, bro, Doc, Cassell, whoever the fuck it was, whatever fire they lit, Tobias Harris is a fucking man on a mission right now.
He goes from a head-scratching player to watch play to I have, outside of Joel, I have more fun watching Tobias Harris ISO than anybody else, and I've enjoyed watching him all year, and I hated it last year.
I agree with you 100% because, and here's the big deal. This is like, think about fucking Carmelo. It's crazy. Think about Carmelo. When Carmelo went to the Knicks and he had to play the 3 and he couldn't play the 4, he was still an offensive powerhouse, but it was obviously it's all they had.
Yeah.
When he played for the 4 in Denver when they let him, and when he went to this what everybody's calling a rejuvenation. No, somebody just finally let him play basketball. There was no rejuvenation here. Carmelo Anthony was just waiting for an opportunity to play basketball. And this Blazers Carmelo, who plays the 4, he is just, I love watching him fucking play, bro. It's like watching street ball. And Tobias Harris is going out there, bro. And I'm telling you, this motherfucker gets the ball and you can watch him feel it. I'm the biggest, baddest motherfucker. Whoever comes in front of me ain't stopping me. And he's chirping at people. Dude, it's great to watch.
And the thing is, and here's the last thing I'll say about this finals run that we should be going on. When Tobias is playing like that and being aggressive and talking shit, and it starts rubbing off on Ben, and Ben starts doing the same thing, and then Joel is just the factor that he is in the game, the team's impossible to beat. The problem is Ben most of the time has not been that, and Tobias has been that 75% of the time, but does sometimes miss it 25% of the time. Ben's more like 40, 60, like 30% there. And
he's softer than Sharman, like the rest of his fucking young-ass, dumb fucking cohorts are. But so let me ask you this last question on basketball, and then we'll get into the Eagles. We both agree that we're watching a finals run. We're just going to look into the crystal ball, and we're going to say that the Sixers defeat the Lakers in 6 games to win the NBA Finals this season. Who is the Finals MVP?
They beat the Lakers. If they beat the Lakers, I would assume that Ben would be guarding LeBron. So if Ben does a good job on LeBron and is aggressive if Ben can average 16 or 17 points and hold LeBron to like not getting the triple-double every game, I think he's got a really good shot. But if Embiid here's the other thing. Embiid takes Anthony Davis out of the series because I hope that's the matchup. I really do, because I don't think people understand, because they don't watch enough Sixers basketball. The Lakers get a lot of TV time. I truly believe that if you match up Joel Embiid and I know Gasol plays the 5 sometimes, but I'm just hoping Embiid and Anthony Davis are matching up. There is a clear difference between Joel Embiid and Anthony Davis. And Anthony Davis gets talked about a lot as being a top 5 this year, maybe top 10 because he didn't have a great year, but a top 5 player. If you watch him this year go up against a Joel Embiid, you are going to completely change your mind, and he's going to drop far down that list because there is a massive gap. And it's not a talent gap. It's a strength gap. It's a dog gap that they have.
He's rapidly turning out to be Kevin Love, and it's scaring the shit out of me. LeBron just ruins big forwards. So are you saying Ben or are you saying Joe? You got to pick one.
It's got to be Joe. I mean, it has.
So you say Joel. I'm writing these down because I'm really interested to see how this goes. So I'm gonna take it an unbelievably opposite, holy fucking shitballs different way. I'm actually gonna ask you take one wild guess. It doesn't make sense. Who am I gonna say is the MVP?
It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. You're gonna hate it. Who is it?
Is it Matisse Thybulle? I don't know.
Right on the fucking money. Right on the money.
To guard LeBron.
So this is my theory. This is my theory. Hear me out real fast while I write this down. So, well, obviously the Iguodala thing happened, right?
Yeah. Shouldn't have.
So, well, it was the worst decision anybody could have ever made, but they made it. Matisse Thybulle is more than likely, by the time we get to the Eastern Conference Finals, and this is with the assumption that Brooklyn is the matchup in the Eastern Conference Finals to play the Lakers in the NBA Finals. That Brooklyn series, Seth Curry is more than likely going to become the 6th man with George Hill. He's going to be a bench unit guy in those 2 series specifically because you need the defense Matisse gives you far more than the 8 to 9 points you're going to get from Seth Curry if it's his best first half. So you don't need Seth Curry there. You need Seth Curry to be the guy that scores in specific areas. So Matisse is more than likely going to be in the starting lineup. If Matisse plays well against Brooklyn, which I believe he will, and shuts down Kyrie or Harden or whoever they put him on, come the next series, Matisse is going to stay in the starting lineup. You don't fuck with that. If you beat the Brooklyn Nets in 5 games, you don't fucking change a second of the lineup that you use to do that. You're going to match the Lakers the same way. Matisse will be in the starting lineup. And if that's the case, because Joe does struggle with lateral movement, I believe that you don't have a dumb coach in LA, bro. You have LeBron James and a good head coach.
Vogel's very good.
Vogel's a very good head coach. If you have a good head coach and the smartest player to ever put on shoes, they're going to play Gasol and Davis together to try to make Joel Embiid have to shift and move laterally against Anthony Davis. That's the one area where Joe struggles defensively is when he has faster guys, he's not able to match the speed without fouling, and that's the goal. The goal is to foul Embiid out of the series. It's hopefully not going to happen, but that will be their goal. If you can put Matisse in the starting lineup, Matisse is capable of guarding a 36-year-old LeBron James on 60% of an ankle. He's more than capable. If you find success early, that whole series, that will be the matchup. And Matisse Thybulle, to me, is, you just shared something earlier today, that maybe it was yesterday. He's the first guy with 100 blocks and 200 steals in less than 20 minutes ever. He is one of the greatest defenders right now already.
Yeah.
If you have a series where Embiid does Embiid things and Ben does Ben things and Toby does Toby things, and there's not a holy shit, look at what this guy did, it's going to have to default to LeBron James didn't make enough of a difference, and that's going to be Matisse Thybulle, and that's why I think he could be the guy.
Here's the other thing with the Sixers playoff run that people have to understand is getting the 1 seed in the conference finals, you now have home court advantage against the Brooklyn Nets. And in the NBA finals, if it happens to be the Lakers, you get game 7 at home. And those are with 50% capacity in these stadiums. That is massive.
Yo, let me tell you why real fast, a benefit of if Washington wins this game. You, as the Philadelphia 76ers, will not have to get on an airplane until the NBA finals in game 3.
Yeah.
That is huge, Huge. They
That is
can stay home and practice in their facility and still make it to the game same day if they want to.
that is the best point I've ever heard you make that I never
Fuck
thought
you, Dick. Fuck you. I'm a smart guy. I are smart. That's not nice.
It's a great point. You get to go to DC and then you get an hour and a half, 2 hour trip to Brooklyn. There's nothing. There's no travel.
And it could break down. It could break down that you get Washington, you get the Knicks, and then you get the Nets. If it goes that direction, that is literally, I'm not kidding. You don't even have to ever sleep in a hotel room if you don't want to. That's how close all those places are. Indiana throws a little bit of a kink into it, but it's not far. But again, dude, that would be, Jack, could you imagine how comfortable your team would be if you knew that you were not leaving your fucking own bed for a month and a half of the playoffs? Like, that's huge, man.
Yeah. It's
huge. Talk to me about Ryan Kerrigan.
All right. So I don't know if anybody remembers Carson Wentz's first year. Lane Johnson.
This guy does.
Lane Johnson was probably the best right tackle in the NFL. Would you agree with that?
I think Lane Johnson has basically been he might still be the best. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Jason Peters was on the other side at that point. And we went 6-10 his first year. Now, I knew we were going to be really good in 2017 because we lost 10 games, and I think 5 or 6 of them we lost by less than 3 or 4 points.
Yep.
So it was a little bit of a turnaround, but we lost, I think, 2 games. I want to say we lost 2 games against Washington. I know we lost 1.
And I watched
Ryan Kerrigan eat up Jason Peters and Lane Johnson, and specifically Lane Johnson, every game that he was matched up with him. For whatever reason, Lane Johnson can block DeMarcus Ware. He can block Khalil Mack. He can block. It didn't matter who he had to block, but Ryan Kerrigan, for some reason, gave him fits.
Abused him.
So Kerrigan's played, and he won that last game for him. I think it was a Week 16 or Week 17 game against the Eagles that year. I remember specifically because Carson was running for his life the whole game, and Kerrigan was wrecking the game. They were trying to just end on a high note, and Kerrigan was not letting him do that. He's played the Eagles 19 times during his career. He has 13 and a half sacks against them. That's his most against any team. 63 tackles, 15 tackles for a loss, 6 forced fumbles, 24 QB hits against the Eagles. He's 9th all-time in sacks against the Eagles. Getting Ryan Kerrigan on the other side, given how good that Washington football team's D-line and now linebacker crew already is just it's not the biggest move of the offseason, but it's big within the division. And it gives you another guy in the rotation that can either play outside when Barnett is eventually probably going to be hurt or not doing his job, in a rotation with Sweat, giving Brandon Graham a break on the other side, or even in certain situations, playing outside linebacker for us, given the lack of linebacker depth that we had. So the Ryan Kerrigan pickup was very surprising. And it's going to be, how you mentioned to me, very similar, I believe, to the Chris Long situation. Doesn't have quite the speed that Chris Long had just coming off the edge on third downs, but has
he is stronger.
An array of power moves that is just
I think that this was a move that was necessary for the Eagles for a couple of different reasons. I think the 2 biggest ones are, it was an area of need. I mean, nobody left the draft feeling satisfied. I think Milton Williams is going to be a good player. He's interior. I love the kid they got from Coastal Carolina. I think that might be an under-the-radar pickup that came. I know that it was a position of need. Yeah, I know that it was a position of need. The trade for the corner, we'll talk about why that's stupid in a second. I know that outside edge rusher was a position of need, but I also think that what this team has sorely lacked since the moment that Malcolm Jenkins left is a leader. Mm-hmm. Brandon Graham does his best, but he doesn't want to. Fletcher Cox does his best, but he doesn't want to be a leader, right? I mean, Jason Peters did his best, did not want to be a leader. Jason Kelsey's the leader of that offense. Kerrigan is a guy that can be the captain, a true captain. He might only play 25 or 30 snaps a game, but he can run that defense from the sideline. He is somebody that gives you, it addresses a lot of problems with such a young coaching staff. The trade for the corner, here's my understanding. played for Nick Sirianni or played at the same school Nick Sirianni coached or some shit. That's the tie. They traded an undrafted rookie that they signed last year in a 6th-round pick. The pro comparison for this young man they just traded for, though, just so happens to be Avonte Maddox, and you already have one of those guys. But I guess it's depth. I guess it's, Avonte dealt with some bugs last year, a couple of injuries. You need to have your slot covered. They still need a cornerback. I really think that they might have gotten something. I think it was the 4th round whenever they drafted that corner. Yeah, and what are they doing signing more running backs? What is this? What the fuck is going on?
I mean, they're just – I don't know what the offensive game plan. I don't know if you're planning on putting running backs in the slot like it's college. I don't know. I mean,
are they afraid that Gainwell is Donnell Pumphrey? Like, I don't get it. It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, one of the things is there's 2 guys in your running back room now that are consistently injured. One of them happens to be your starter. The other one happens to be Jordan Howard. So your running back room is filled with guys that are good players but can't stay on the field. So
one of them happens to be your starter. One of them happens to be Jordan Howard.
So they're filling up the room. I don't know what they're planning on doing. Maybe they want these guys to get used to the offense and the scheme so that if they have to bring them in the middle of the year, they're familiar with how they're running the football. Jordan Howard already knows that. Miles Sanders already knows that. Maybe they think they're going to need some depth. History tells you that they're going to, but yeah, it's a little bit much at this point.
I just don't understand, man. I don't get it. I don't get what the future is. This is why I say, you told me right before we got on here that I'm down on the Eagles. I don't think I'm down. I think I'm being realistic. I think that there's no doubt in my fucking mind that this team will have been granted a gift from whichever Lord you pray to himself by winning 6 games if they do. I don't see more than 4 or 5 wins on this schedule, and I don't want to. I'm not complete yet, right? Listen, if we get a 1st-round pick from Indianapolis, it's because Carson Wentz plays more than 75% of the offensive snaps. If that's the case and that vests to a 1, it's probably in the mid-20s. That's not going to get you much. We see how much of a fucking crapshoot the mid-20s are for Howie and for this fucking team. So that pick is useless. Miami's pick. I'm not big on Miami. I know you're a little bit bigger on them than I am, but I think Miami probably wins 10 games this year, maybe 11. And that's going to be a pick that's in the back end of the 20s. So you have a unique opportunity to have 2 shitty years and either build more assets because you find out that Jalen Hurts can play pretty well and the holes on your team just stopped you from winning and you have a bounce back like you did in 2017. But you can address some shit, man. Your offensive line's getting older. Lane Johnson's ligaments are so fucking bad. Too many steroids. Kids, if you want a reason why not to juice a roid, Lane Johnson has rubber bands for ligaments. That's part of why you don't do it. You need so many things, man. There's so many things you need. Why would you want to have a year where you might squeak out a division win at 7 fucking wins? For why? To get your teeth kicked in by Tom Brady in the winter? Why would you want to do that?
You don't think that let's just say that the Eagles shock everyone and they win 9 games. And in week 17,
no way.
I'm just throwing this out there. Let's say they shock everyone. They win 9 games. They're in a week 17 matchup against, I think it's the Cowboys, and they're fighting for a playoff spot. And you've watched, let's say, Jalen Hurts take a major step forward, and he's closing in on 4,200 yards, 30 touchdowns. Let's just pretend for a second there's a light where he just starts becoming a much better passer, and your wide receiver draft pick actually worked out in Devontae Smith. Okay. John Hightower played well. Jalen Reagor stayed healthy and played pretty well. You don't like them to make the playoffs just to have something to build off the following year?
No.
And know that they have a quarterback for the future?
Nope. No, it's not worth 10 spots in the draft. No. And it's not worth 10 spots in the draft because most of this team has won a Super Bowl. Most of that, 3/5 of that offensive line has won a Super Bowl. Right? Like there's players that exist on this team that were there when they did it. Most of your star players on defense, sans Darius Slay, won a Super Bowl with this team. You have guys in the locker room to help you in the playoffs. No. No, you don't sacrifice the 3rd pick in the draft to the fucking 17th pick in the draft just to say, hey, we made it. No fucking way. Absolutely not.
Yeah, I would prefer to know that I have Jalen Hurts as my future quarterback, but
I know that already. If everything you just told me is there, I know that already. Dallas, here's the division, just like you did last year. Here's the division to whatever team needs it. We don't fucking need it. We need help. We need another star cornerback. Our fucking free safety has been on this team for 6 years and is getting old. The guy we drafted to replace him doesn't look like he's panning out much. We have one linebacker who anybody but us know his name.
I was just thinking about Davion Taylor being the 3rd-round pick last year that they decided to go with when there was a bunch of good linebackers on the board. Them passing up linebackers this year.
And then passing up Owusu Koromoa this year. For again, I love Landon Dickerson. What a great player to get. You probably could have gotten him in the 3rd round from what most people are saying, but that could be people just trying to bitch out the Eagles and say that they had a chance and they didn't really. That's all hearsay now. But you do need these things, bro. Brandon Graham is 33 years old. Fletcher Cox is 33 or 34 years old. You have so many. Brandon Brooks is in his early 30s. Jason Kelsey's going to retire next year, and you hope that Dickerson's your help there. But then Sayamalu is your fucking left guard. Could you upgrade? Yeah. There's so many places where you need help. And for why? To let Jalen Hurts get his fucking whole heart and soul crushed on primetime television because his team's not good enough? Like, no, man, that doesn't help you. That hurts you.
We'll agree to disagree. I'd like to find out who my quarterback is this year, but
we can do that without needing the playoffs. If Jalen Hurts has a good year,
defense, right? That means
right, and you, because you know why, Aaron, you know why it means that? Because you fucking do. They have a terrible defense. Their defense is awful. They have a couple of really good pass rushers who only take a couple of guys on the offensive line to stop. And then what? And then what? I know that your CFL guy, your CFL fucking middle linebacker led the league in tackles and he statistically looked great. Go watch those games. He was awful. He was dog shit in coverage. You know what I mean? You don't have enough. Lose the games. It's okay. Just don't demoralize Jalen Hurts at the same time.
All right. So speaking of which, I have a present for you.
Oh, fuck me.
Because you argued with me real hard against Darius Slay. I was trying to remind you that last year he had some really good games.
He sucked balls.
Wide receivers, and you said
he
who?
And balls.
I remember it specifically happening. So let me give you some lines, okay?
Oh, he sucked balls. Let's do it.
All right. So in 2 games versus Amari Cooper got 1 reception against him for 35 yards.
Pause. Against Ben DiNucci and Andy Dalton. Next.
More. Okay. Does it matter who the
yes, it does. Don't you fucking dare. Of course it does.
Okay, fine. Michael Thomas, 3 catches for 33 yards. Okay. Jarvis Landry, 1 catch for 13 yards. Terry McLaurin, 2 catches for 28 yards. So these are
against Tyler Heineke.
Cooper Kupp, 2 catches again for 5 yards. So he had a stretch at the beginning of the season where he was pretty much locking down everybody. You can't deny it. I mean, that's just what happened. They're top wide receivers. They got locked down by Darius Slay. We saw him get his ass whooped by DK Metcalf physically, but at no point in that game was he out of position against DK Metcalf. He just got out.
How many games? Count out the 2 Cowboys games. How many games did you write down?
There's 6 games there.
6 games counting the Cowboys?
2 Cowboys games, Washington twice, the Saints.
That's 5.
The Rams.
That's
and
6.
The Browns.
That's 7. So take the 2 Cowboys out. So you got 5 games. 5 games. He did his job out of 16.
Come on. Well, there's not an elite receiver. He didn't get burned all year. He got burned in 2 games all year.
How many interceptions did Darius Slay have this year?
He didn't have a lot. But Darrell Reeves Champ Bailey and Darrell Reeves used to have years where they had a couple interceptions.
How many pass deflections does he have this year? Passes defended.
I don't have all that. I was just giving.
Well, of course you don't, because you want to give enough context to justify your half-baked fucking hot take. Darius Slay had a bad year last year. He's not a bad player. He had a bad year. And it was exquisitely bad and obvious because the other side of the defense was even worse than Darius Slay was, because they weren't as good of a player. So it was exacerbated, bro. It was bad. The defense was bad last year.
The defense was bad, and I think it made him look pretty bad, to be honest with you.
And he had a bad. Aaron, why is it so hard for you? What, is Darius Slay your fucking uncle or something? Darius Slay had a bad season.
All right, well, we can agree to disagree.
How do you go different? They had the fucking 6th pick in the draft. Nobody played well on that team last year.
I know. I mean, so if your assignment as a corner is to, like, let's just have him in a zone for a second, or even man, someone goes deep and you're supposed to have safety help over the top, and the safety doesn't do their job because everyone's fucking injured and you're signing guys off the street, everyone's going to look bad. So, like,
he's an elite corner. He should be able to keep up with deep balls.
He's not elite. He's a great corner. I'm not putting him up there with the, Jair Alexanders and all the Gilmores and guys like that. He's not those guys. But he's a step down.
He had a bad year. It's okay. I'm expecting a great year out of him this year because he had a bad year, because he's a gamer, and that guy fucking cares. And I think when he goes back and watches his tape, he sees a lot of games where he didn't do as good as he could have done. He had a bad season. He was adjusting to a new team. He had new surroundings. There's a lot of reasons why he had a down year. It's fucking okay. He had a bad year.
He's going to have another new coordinator this year, another new defense to learn.
I think that the new coordinator this year leans heavily on guys like him to help build the scheme. I think that that's why they brought in a young guy, because you've got these veteran presences on all 3 levels of the defense now, because Kerrigan is technically an outside linebacker but an edge rusher. You have veteran leadership who I think are going to help form and shape this defense. I think that's why they have certain guys around. I think it's why Rodney McLeod is still a part of this team. I know that he's not bad, but let's not sit here and fucking pretend like Rodney McLeod was so good they couldn't have upgraded.
That's his job. That's about it. That's about what you can say.
Yeah, and again, he's a free safety in today's league. There's not a lot of job to do. I mean, you're not expected to be Jamal Adams or Earl Thomas. It was those 2 guys and nobody else.
Yeah. So the halftime score, Memphis, San Antonio, if anybody cares, I don't. Memphis is up by 7 against San Antonio.
Memphis was up 28-7 when we first started this. It's fucking nuts.
So, Tatum scored 50 last points last night. We got a game coming up with Steph versus LeBron. In a 1-game play-in game, I see no shot. I know everybody thinks the Warriors are going to come out and Steph's going to have his typical, 45-point game that he was having towards the end of the year. It's not going to happen. The Lakers have the number 1 defense in the NBA. They did that this season without LeBron on the floor for 20 games. They did it without Anthony Davis on the floor for about 20, 25 games. Still finished with the number 1 defense. Don't expect an upset tonight. If you're betting on it, you're probably going to lose your money. I know the odds were probably in your favor, but it is a bad bet right now. I took LeBron to have over a combined 42.5 points, rebounds, assists. I think that's going to be a lock. And I actually gave the Warriors the points. I took it at -5.5. I'm giving the Warriors. I think this is going to be a 10 to 12 point win.
That's brazen, fella. Damn. I don't know that I'm as confident in the Lakers as you are. I still think if they're all the way healthy, they're the best team in the West. There's no question there. I agree with you that the Lakers win this game. I don't think it's going to be that. If the Warriors lose, they're out of the playoffs, correct?
The Warriors are, let's see, what's Western Conference standings? So the Warriors being they would have a play-in game against the winner of the Grizzlies Spurs.
So let's say that
the 8th seed right now.
So let's say that the Grizzlies win, and that young team, that young hungry team's got to go beat up Steph. They could.
Yeah, they could.
So I think that right now, so obviously if they win, they're probably in because they're the 8th seed. I would assume, and this is just an assumption, I would assume that Golden State is firing on as many cylinders as they have. Five and a half, I think, is a fair number, but I think it's just as likely that they cover that they don't. I think that this is going to be a very hard-fought game in the fourth quarter. It's probably going to be bucket for bucket for a while. This is a playoff game between Steph Curry and LeBron James.
I think it's just a bad matchup for the Warriors, this Lakers team, when you don't have Wiseman to at least help you with Anthony Davis. There's no big on that team. And so you have no big, and Anthony Davis is the big on the Lakers. You also have Marc Gasol, who's played terribly, but he's still a true big. They have the number one rated defense. Andrew Wiggins can't score. Kelly Oubre can't score. Draymond Green can't score. So you're relying on Steph for all your scoring against the number one rated defense. I think Vogel's going to do his best, obviously, to take him out of the game. There's only so much you can do against guys like Steph who could shoot from 40 feet and still put up 45 points. And that's the X factor, obviously. But I just don't see how they're going to come out with enough firepower against the number one ranked defense to even put up 105 points.
I don't know, bro. I just don't think the Lakers are ready yet either. I think the Lakers got a lot of rust to knock off still. I think there's a lot of things going in the favor of Golden State, and I think that's probably the reason why the public money is on Golden State. They believe in the magic that Steph Curry has put together the last couple of weeks. It's been impressive. I mean, I said to you before we came on, Steph Curry is a guy who I think needs to have some consideration for MVP. I think Russell Westbrook is a guy that should have some consideration for MVP. I think that because they're 8 seed and 9 seed teams, that's why they don't. I get it. Sure. But this is, again, back to the beginning of one of our first beefs that we talked about when we started this podcast together. I fucking hate the fact that it's the way that it goes. Like, there's no why there's that rule's not written anywhere. The definition of most valuable player is the player that was most valuable to what his team did. If your team was only good enough to win 30 games, but every game they won was because you averaged 45 points a game, you should be considered. You should that trophy's individual. It's not a team trophy. So that should have nothing to fucking do with where you end up. But it also shouldn't have to do with injury. It should have to do with what you saw when you played.
Well, here's the difference and why I disagree with yes, it's an individual award, but it has to somewhat be based around how your team does. Because realistically, was Chris Paul any more valuable this year than he was on OKC the year before? Or did he just have a better team to go to with Devin Booker, Ayton, Bridges?
Well, obviously he has a better team for sure.
So we're talking about him in the MVP race, and it doesn't mean it's fair or not fair, but your surroundings are obviously going to make some of your case for MVP. If Joel Embiid was doing this all season, but the Sixers were the 5 seed, we wouldn't be talking about it. And it's actually one of the things, to be honest with you, that kind of pisses me off about everybody saying that Jokic is running away with the award because he's going to win it. But they're the 3 seed. Jamal Murray got injured a couple weeks ago. He played every game. He was available. I get that availability goes a long way in winning an MVP award. You can't miss a third of the season and win MVP. But we're going to sit here and we're going to talk about, we're not going to talk about Chris Paul, but we're talking about Jokic. We're not talking about Dame Lillard on the 6th seed because they're the 6th seed. We're not talking about LeBron because he missed games, but because Jokic played every game, they won 47 games. That's impressive in a 72-game season. But when I watch Jokic, I don't think he's more valuable than Joel Embiid. I don't think he's more valuable than LeBron. I don't think he's more valuable than Chris Paul. But he is going to win the award. He's putting up ridiculous offensive numbers, but he doesn't play any defense. So
he can't play defense.
Yeah, so it is a weird award, but I do think it definitely.
Hey, bro, does Ben have a chance at Defensive Player of the Year? Do you think?
Yeah, he has a chance. I don't know. I don't know who the leader is.
I'm struggling to think who the slam dunk.
It's got to be.
Other guy would be.
The guys in the conversation are probably Gobert and Giannis. I would assume.
And Kawhi. They would be the guys I'd think, but Gobert hasn't had a particularly great season by any standard because he's not been out there. I mean, again, I know he plays for a team that's not all that, but they were the number 1 team in the NBA. I mean, we haven't heard a ton about him. Kawhi's been pretty quiet. I watch ESPN when I can. I haven't seen Kawhi's monster defense.
Yeah.
And Giannis has kind of gotten less defensive the more offensive he's become. Not that he's a bad defender by any stretch of the mind, but Ben is better. I can't believe that I'm going to say that Ben Simmons might win a legit award before Joel Embiid does. I
Yeah.
mean, not counting Rookie of the Year or any of that shit, but that's Joel Embiid is a guy that probably could compete for Defensive Player of the Year, but because he missed 25 games, he doesn't count for anything.
Right. So statistically, if you're looking at the statistics, I'm just looking at them right now. Rudy Gobert is one of the higher ones who's played the amount of games that you would need to play to win an award like that. Julius Randle is up there, and Ben Simmons is up there. Now, out of those guys, excuse me, and you'd be surprised, Tobias Harris is on this list, and Joel Embiid's right next to him as well. Utah has a couple guys. Mike Conley only played 51 games. LeBron only played 45 games. So it looks like just in regards to what I'm looking at.
LeBron missed 32 games this year?
It's a lot of games.
Holy fuck.
What I'm looking at, it looks like it's a race between Gobert, Ben Simmons, and maybe Julius Randle. If they're talking, I don't think they're talking about Julius Randle like that though, because the offensive numbers he's putting up are so ridiculous. He's going to win Most Improved Player. I don't know.
Yo, what a fucking unbelievable steal that turned out to be.
What a story the Knicks are. Like what a story.
And listen, I was just talking to a friend of mine who's a rep for a bank. We were just talking on a Facebook thread the other day about the Knicks. And that he believes that they're one Kawhi Leonard away. And Kawhi's got an option now. And who knows what he decides. And
I don't think Kawhi's leaving California.
Well, that's what I said. I didn't know that Kawhi was the guy. But let me offer an intriguing. I think Lonzo Ball goes to that team and does unbelievable shit. In the limelight, can deal with the pressure, is going to love being in New York. And I think Julius Randle is to a level now where with an elite playmaker, they're going to be a fucking good team, bro.
Let me throw this out there because I just thought of it. Contracts that are coming up in the next year or two. Kawhi's obviously coming up. LaMelo's going to come up in a couple years, and he's not going to stay there. Ben's going to come up. If they win a championship, he's either going to go to LA or stay in Philadelphia. I don't think there's options outside of that. I don't see Ben going to New York.
I agree. 100% agree.
LA guy. There's been a lot of rumors about the potential of Steph Curry going to the Lakers. Can you imagine if just to play with LeBron to kind of end their careers out? He's got a contract coming up. LeBron's been kind of like doing his recruitment thing. That's his like they're boys now. They've had some matchups against each other, and the Warriors have been falling apart for a couple years. They've had some injuries.
Can wait just for a second? Can we admire for just a moment? Could you imagine? That would be the most beautiful basketball ever played.
I would love to see LeBron on the decline with Steph still with a couple
I
years.
want to watch a 38-and-a-half-year-old LeBron James whoop the shit out of my elite Sixers team in 7 games to win one with Steph right before they hang it up.
Yeah.
Dude, that basketball would be unbelievable.
My other thought is let's just pretend for a second that Steph doesn't do that, but he wants to go somewhere. And the one thing the Knicks are missing is just the offensive firepower to make a finals run. I mean, if they're playing good defensively and Julius Randle's this good and RJ Barrett's coming into his own and Thibodeau's coaching, adding Steph Curry to that.
You got guys, bro. Obi Toppin's going to be a good player. You've got some depth on that roster. Julius Randle is just reaching his prime he just became a man.
He's going to be in it for 5 years, 6 years.
Yeah, and he is a guy that is a difference maker, bro. You keep him healthy and you give him some help so it's not all on his shoulders. He becomes I think about fours, right? And I know he plays the 5 sometimes. Julius Randle's a power forward to me. That's what he is to me. I think I look at Zion and I go, no, I'd rather have Julius Randle. Right now, Julius Randle's game is unbelievably complete.
And Zion's going to grow into that, and I'm huge on him because he's such a bully, and he's going to develop.
You got a Zion boner. You've had it for years now.
He's going to develop, but there's no shot that I would take him over Julius Randle for the next 3 years. There's no shot.
Julius Randle's just fucking unbelievable, bro. He's great. Closing thoughts, bro, real fast. Joel Embiid is Aaron's MVP finals if the Sixers go on to win. Mine is Matisse Thybulle. We're going to mention that as time goes on. I didn't get a chance to really go into it, but Aaron still believes that this is an 8 or a 9 win football team, and I can't bring myself to it.
Put ourselves in a world where that happens. I think they can win 7 games.
Just to remind everybody, his guess was 9 and 8 last episode, but we'll say 7. Still not going to happen.
Go ahead.
Ryan Kerrigan was a great signing. I think it does a lot for this football team. Bryce Harper is still paid perfectly right for what he does, guys. He's not overpaid. He's not overrated. He's not as advertised. I know Ryan Howard spoiled you with 50 home run seasons. That's not the guy Bryce is. Ryan Howard was 390 fucking pounds. Those guys are once in a generation. We had ours. Bryce Harper's a great baseball player. So is JT Realmuto. People go through slumps. Calm down, guys. It's not this year. No more baseball. It's okay.
I have a massive parlay going right now.
Oh yeah, what you got?
I've been watching it so I got the Padres won. I gave the Rockies a run and a half, and they won 3-0.
Okay.
The Nationals money line, they're up 3-1. I got the Braves. I got the Braves giving the Mets 1.5 runs. They're up 3-1.
Okay.
And then LA's playing tonight with Kershaw on the mound. So I took the Dodgers and I gave the Diamondbacks a run and a half. So it's looking pretty good. I have an option right now. I put in $90 to win 1,100. I have an option right now to cash out at 340. But my guy is riding this. We're riding this wave, and we're gonna cash in big tonight, bud. We're gonna cash in.
Yeah,
big.
Man.
I hit it. If I have a cash out option above 700, I'm gonna take it though.
For sure. I mean, shit, man. To go. That's
I'm
8.5 to 1.
Not scared money, but I'll take multiplying my money by 7 and I'll play happy. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, listen, man. Best of luck to you. I hope your parlay stays true and hits. I'm going to attempt to have a second episode this week, guys, just so you know. I don't know if Aaron's going to have a birthday party or a luau or a fucking disco ball.
We're winding down on this, right? Winding down, please.
We're gonna have another episode on Sunday because we're gonna do that. I'll make this motherfucker commit. We gotta follow some Eagles shit. Pay attention for some more signings. I think there's some more shit to go down. It was a good conversation, buddy, and the Sixers are gonna win the title this year.
I hope so. This year for the Sixers reminds me of 2 years ago for the Raptors, so I really hope it pans out this way. Not that I want to win by default because people get hurt, but these teams haven't played together long enough this year, and the Sixers have played enough together this year to know what they are. They really could make the finals run, and I would be upset if they didn't make the finals this year because I think everybody's going to come back healthy with fans next year, and it changes everything. So you're healthy this year. Go get the title, and let's put it under the rug and prove everybody wrong.
Couldn't have said it better myself, brother.
All right, bro. Big Facts, all streaming platforms. We'll be back on Sunday with you guys at 9 p.m. You guys have a good night.
Philadelphia.